Welcome back to the Transforming Basketball podcast. Very happy today to be joined by a friend and colleague, Will Twigg. Had the pleasure of working with Will at the London Lions Academy this year. Will, thanks for joining the podcast.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, really great to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Will, I want to start off with your first thoughts and impressions of the CLA. I believe it was probably about a year and a half ago when I did the first online kind of coach dev sessions, and we were on that. And obviously, we'd known about each other before, but that was our first like proper interaction. Is that correct? That was
Yeah.
your first kind of exposure to it?
Yeah. So actually, in a sense of actually the experience of it in basketball, 100%. The only other interaction I had previous was the year during that year actually was at university, um, and it was interesting to learn about the CLA through a more of an academic element to it without the basketball. But obviously, when we first came into contact, that was the where actually putting two and two together for a clearer understanding of how we can use CLA in basketball.
Love it. Will, what do you think were any aha moments you had as we are going through that and you just kind of reflected on it, tried things out? Do you remember any obvious things that might help other coaches as they navigate this approach?
Yeah, what 100%. So it was a challenge. It was a real challenge to understand and try and implement a different way and style of coaching. And obviously, every coach has their own philosophy and what they believe in. I'm a big believer on trying to be a sponge, and I kind of went away from that thinking, being a bit arrogant in the sense of knowing what I knew, and I thought it was to a quite a good high level. But obviously, that thing I went away from being my philosophy. So so yeah, the challenge is obviously the it's okay to fail in a sense because that's the best element of where you're going to learn more about yourself as well as the players, but even more about yourself and how to get the most out of them.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to ask you this in terms of how understanding the CLA has allowed you to be more intentional and purposeful with how you're using constraints, why you're using them, and applying these to small-sided games, as opposed to what a lot of people still think, where we're just coaching with small-sided games using a games approach, as opposed to being really, really specific through the CLA.
Sure. So with my under 14 boys group at the London Lions, it's really important to hold them to their constraints that we set in each small-sided game, and that being is to actually get the message clear enough for them to progress and develop. And for an example, we'd do a 2v1 of one of our gets where they would pitch and slip the ball. So a player would pass the ball from the 45 to the trail, and they would pitch the ball up to create a 2v1 advantage. A lot of things that we saw was they were not being direct on drives on the pitch, on the catch,
Mm,
which would then lose an element of the advantage of drawing the defender.
yeah.
And this is where we added constraints to really make sure that really guided them and held them accountable to where for them to create success. Now we're in a situation where they're able to recognize them solutions just through by using different constraints to give them the best advantage to create offense.
I love it. I think the best ones that stand out there with our under 14s group were the wall constraint, where instead of taking that loopy drive, we just constrain the space they have available, so they
100%.
have to be direct. And I like how you use the one opportunity very intensively with them, and it makes them so like it's pretty incredible to see what an under 14 group can do when they're actually challenged in terms of running sophisticated conceptual offense. Like I watched them running gets, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say we would see probably at least 8 coverage solutions in a practice. Like would see reject where they don't even use the get, they just reject. Would see
100%.
backdoor cuts, the passer and receiver. So that's 3 right there. We see keeps. So where, we don't pitch it back, we see the pitch and slip. That's 5. They've started twisting, and that's now you've started doing pick and roll with them. They've started doing what else? Curls, just giving it late and going. So it's pretty incredible just to see how creative they are doing this out of one trigger and just more purposeful intention. So this is my next question, principles of play. And this is something we are obsessed with, I can say, in the academy. And it's a part of my crusade. You hear this a lot, Will, unfortunately, just you must be sick of my voice by now, is
Not
stopping
so.
pass and cut, moving away from pass and cut. And a lot of youth coaches, unfortunately, don't grasp that yet. And I think our 14s boys team is a perfect flagship to be like, all right, this is the alternative to what you can do if you don't do these things. So this is probably going to be quite a long answer and it's very general, but I would love for you to talk through our principles of play at the under 14 age group. And we might branch off and I might ask you questions along the way.
Sure. So one of the biggest things that we look at is obviously we color code our offense and also our defense in a sense. So if we're starting with offense, we're looking at obviously we have green, and that's our first basis of where we're trying to push the ball in transition as quick as possible at any point of transition. Even on a score, we'd look to get a quick inbounds and go. We have a thing called quarter. We'd look on a rebound to be a quarterback, looking to obviously push the ball. And that would obviously set the standard and the start of us trying to run and beat a team with quick advantage in transition. I think the thing that we've noticed, and our very early days when we started this journey, when we started our first game in EYBL and getting blown out by a good point score. Not that that matters,
It's
but
part of it.
that is part of it, and they're growing and learning from that. Where we would just build and put the focus on how they're going to play out of green and how they're going to create advantages as early on as possible within the offense. That's really our main focus in that early days.
Yeah.
In terms of our defense of the under 14s on ball, we're always looking to start. We're forcing weak, putting the player on their weak hand as much as possible to try and disrupt the player with the ball. This obviously allows us to make us be in a sense of where we can achieve what we want to on defense to create stops.
Question for you on that, Will. I think the force week's been so disruptive. How have you developed the ball pressure as part of it? Because I remember early on, like all the players were used to guarding inside the 3-point line. Why? Because typically kids in England haven't been able to shoot well, so they could get away with that, like sagging very heavily. It's weird. I've never really seen that anywhere else. And we were demanding that they're right up on the ball because we wanted to develop, adaptive ball handlers who can handle pressure. And obviously, if they want to get to the next level, they need to do that. How did you develop that force week with the intense ball pressure?
And so we constraints. There's a one word answer for you, and we would create small sided games 1-on-1 in the full court, off a rebound or off different changing the different starting positions at each time. Where they start their 1-on-1 in the full court. This obviously allowed to create repetition without repetition, and allowing our defender to obviously experience and make it a situational to the game of what it actually is like picking up the ball full court with full court pressure. That's where we'd start. And the moment they would switch off or they were getting beat on their strong hand, or they were late to recover, they'd be subbed off straight away, and then the next player would go.
Yeah.
And we would try and get as
Immediate
many quick
consequence.
reps,
Yeah.
immediate straight away. Because the moment we pulled them up on it, they then understand that, okay, can't do this. This is how we got to do it.
Yeah.
And then that actually allowed, just by adding that small constraint in, that then allowed them to progress quicker.
Yeah, love it. So that's some of our defense, and we've even got pure switching in and some coverages on like we started doing coverages on gets the HOs, and we even did post defense. One of the highlights were when we did the practice last week where Sean in an under 12 double teamed the post. We've got 3 post coverages, white, red, black. He saw a mismatch. He called the red and he went, forced a turnover. And he was 12 years old. I was like, this is incredible. Never seen this at U14 where they actually mix the coverages up themselves based on KYP, know your personnel. So let's I want to come back to defense and disruptive half-court defense. Let's go to half-court offense. the spacing, when I watch the boys play, that's something that you've done an incredible job with. I think they space better than a lot of pro teams that I've seen. Can you talk about how we space and the reason behind that? And then what triggers that we get to without using motion, offense, pass and car, all this rubbish?
Sure. So we would play. Sorry, we would start using the current spacing of. We would play out the 45s, the corners, the trail spot, and obviously the weak side dunker at our age group. So we would look to try and create advantages out of that through our gets. The early days and early stages, we had a really big intention and focus on that weak side dunker, where we would try and create as many 2v1 opportunities using the dunker in a wheel under or wheel over motion to create that advantage on the defender. And that I think that had a really big impact. We've got an Italian kid called Gioeli, and see his growth playing outside the perimeter as well as in the weak side dunker for his development. He's started to master that wheel under and wheel over more than ever now. And he's trying to dunk it. It was great because he's 13 and he's trying to dunk it over them now at this point, which is great. And attempting and failing, but it's not going to stop him, which is great. He's really started to understand that he has the control from based on what the team provides in the environment of how his action is going to affect the game. So if a drive would happen from the strong side 45 and he would attack middle, he would then wheel under to create a 2v1 advantage. If it was the drive came from the outside on the 45, we would then look for him to then wheel over. Or he might even hold at certain times, depending on where the positioning of his defender at that time. So having that basic level of understanding and spacing with that weak side dunker has really given him a big aspect of understanding the environment of how he can be successful.
And the seals were amazing too. We were sealing them like we called it a wedge because we wanted to distinguish it with a Gortat pick with our 16s because we do the Gortat obviously to punish drop in some zones. And we called it wedge, where you basically do the Gortat but not off a pick and not off a roll or a slip, but literally just from that dunker position. And seeing different U14, we obviously put different players in the dunker. So even Gio, who's obviously really tall, like you said, what I love was I'm diverging. You 2 months ago, you came to me, you're like, Alex, I want to put Gio as a target for one game, as a target player. Where he's handling the ball in the picks. And I was like, hell yeah, this is exactly what it means to develop a prospect. And yeah, that was awesome. But anyway, seeing just how they're all knowing, like, instead of just leaving one player down there, they're all like alternating every possession. They're going to wedge, to seal, to wheel under, wheel over. It's been amazing. So and also what I've seen is they convert dominoes easier because you're getting more gold medals when you do that. And I think for 14s, that's very, very important. And the passes we've been seeing too, not just kickouts to three, but some of the creative, like wrap dump off behind the backs to the dunker. It's been amazing. How have we
100%.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
Just
to build on that, just continue to build on that on the post ups as well. Obviously, we've recently started introducing a Barkley dribble, and we're looking to try and post up with it off the drive. And we've got our guards, our targets are looking to do that more and more now, which is great. And it puts them in a situation that they would, a typical club, they would not be in that situation. So again, it continues to grow that development. And the thing with the wheel under as well is obviously that Nash dribble. Obviously, we like to use that Nash dribble and create a wheel under from the Nash dribble as well. And that also creates
triggers. So we started the year just with 101, like very quick, just like a couple weeks to obviously get them into dominoes. It's the easiest way because then obviously the main focus was all on the spacing dominoes. But then very quickly we got to different triggers. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process throughout the season in terms of kind of where we started, when we added stuff, and just what our triggers are?
Sure. So we through our coaches meetings where we'd all speak together, that we each led, and we'll obviously have them discussions on of where we're creating our limits, our correct me if I'm wrong, what's our limit list, and that really allowed
those
us,
the rate limiters.
Rate limiters. Apologies.
No, not at all.
And that allowed us to really identify the next steps of where we're going to take each team. And with that, that allowed us to really identify, right, we're going to start with
Yeah.
gets and learning different types of gets. And now we're into our triggers. And obviously, we started to play, obviously, out the pick and roll. The first trigger that we look to play out is side and rub. So, side obviously playing from the 45 and the rub playing from the trail spot. This really allowed us to create different advantages in a pick and roll situation. The thing that I've really seen the success in with the boys and with the guys is that crack angle.
Yeah.
If they don't have a crack angle, they'd be out of any small-sided game, and that's one of our constraints, big constraints. But when they've really adopted that, I think in Tyler Jabby Williams is really great at reading and recognizing that crack angle, create that 2v1, and that's the start of where we started after that first EYB about Christmas time.
Yeah.
And that
And
was
I
great.
think what is important context is that, what were we doing in the first August, September, October, November, December? Well, we were literally just playing with one trigger, and that was gets. And I think that was what allowed them to get all the dynamic one-on-one reads really well established, understand spacing, and just the whole concept of conceptual offense. It's not to run a pattern, but it's just to start dominoes. So yeah, I think it was really well done because we were so intentional on doing less, but doing it really well. And that's why their shot selection became amazing. We didn't take any mid-ranges, even at 14s, or catch and shoot threes and rim. It's why their finishing got so good and their spacing got so good. And their three-point shooting is not what you see for another 14 team in the UK. So the gets were really good. Then I think we did some post-up stuff.
Correct.
Then, correct me if I'm wrong, then right before we introduced pick and roll, I think we had turtle spacing.
Correct.
All right, Paul, I'm going to come back to that. And then we did pick and roll. And to complete the context, I think to coaches this in the way we do pick and roll is so different to what we normally see in youth basketball pick and roll. Like you said, where we got these spacings, which are incredibly clearly identified, side and rub. We're always in a side or a rub. Side is two side ahead, ball on the side. Rub is ball in the middle, two side behind, single side, double gap. And then boom, coverage solutions. So we got rejects, crack and slip, crack and roll. We got flips, reading tags. We got short roll, cut and slide. And we're doing this at U14s. And this is why people say, oh, they're under 14, you can't do pick and roll. And I think that's rubbish. Pick and roll is so complex. To do it well, you have to start early because it's good luck, them, if they're not going to do all this stuff till they're much later on, how on earth are they going to be good pros?
100%. And it's that element of the skill of actually how they set a crack angle in a pick and roll, which actually creates the advantage, as you've said. That's the key for them to be successful out of it, as being a picker in that sense. And that's
it. All right, let's talk about the turtle stuff because it was really funny. I got back from Portland and I was running practice, and it was incredible. Without me saying anything, they were like savages. They were calling out turtles against each other and getting in turtle spacing, which is where you get the ball on the side, the strong side corner, two side, weak side, and the dunker, and then basically going to work, trying to get a paint touch attacking that turtle. Talk maybe, Will, about the turtle attack and how we developed that with the CLA.
Sure. So for us to understand why and when we were turtle, the guys they were tasked to actually create like a mini scout on their teammates. This actually then they actually started to think a bit more deeply of how they're going to play against their teammates when they're going in any small-sided game. And this actually allowed them to now start to actually go, right, I know that I have a turtle advantage on this player, so then I can identify that. And a big one is Matthew, one of our younger kids, 12 again.
Matthew's been doing amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and he would identify if he's got a bigger, slower kid on him, he would know, like, turtle, turtle, turtle. He'd scream at top of his lungs because he's got an opportunity.
All five of them.
all five, and they would know that's their best advantage in that moment, that possession, and that's where it's obviously built from our principles of play and our triggers that we run, is that because they've had the opportunity and they've been tasked with creating a bit of a portfolio on each of them. From their point of view, and with coaching staff reviewing it, it's really allowed them to really come into their own and flourish and give them the freedom under still with that constraints in the environment through our principles of play for them to be successful.
Fantastic, Will. And I don't want to talk about it too long, but obviously we had the disappointing news that the academy is not continuing due to funding related issues. But I think I'm always going to have the what if through my whole career, because I want to do a separate podcast just on this year and everything summing up London Lions. But I would have loved to have seen how we could have changed UK basketball if we just had 2 or 3 years with players
Definitely.
doing these principles of play from 12 years old up, where you have 12-year-olds changing coverages, identifying mismatch spacings, running triggers with cup solutions. I wanted to show the world what you can do when you're really having amazing principles of play and using the CLA. And credit to you for going all in with it and running with it, Will.
Definitely, and I think it's something that I wouldn't step away from ever again. Like having this approach and adopting this pedagogy and using it to the best of my ability and being on that path, being on that pathway along with the players as well as myself, trying to learn at the same time and trying to actually learn a lot faster than them to be able to deliver. It's definitely shown an effect of what we're missing actually in British basketball for player youth development and for us to get players into the next level. And I think it's a credit to what we've done within this year. Aside of, I'll always be asking that question as well as the what if.
Yeah.
But it's just shown, and I think if anything made our coaching staff stronger going forward, and there'll be pockets of us that believe in this, and we'll be providing and preaching and helping wherever we can to the basketball community of how to do this. So
that's it, Will. And I'm happy to go on record on this podcast, but if I become a millionaire, it's a lifetime goal of mine to do my own academy, maybe a transforming academy in the UK somewhere, and do this again with like a strategy, at least 3 years of funding, and just show what you can do with UK kids, because the talent is all here. We just need to show, and coaches mean well. A lot of coaches will have connected with Transforming recently. A lot have bought the book in the UK, and it's like there's a lot of conversation now. Coaches want to learn, but they just need to see it and actually have the opportunity. And that's, I think the potential is still staggering here for basketball to blow up.
100%, Alex. I mean, just something I'd like to just touch on as well. See, I've been doing the Welsh national team this year since August, and I've been putting in a CLA approach to very similar triggers and gets and principles of offense and defense that we do at Lions with Wales. And it's about a 5-hour contact time each month. And to see the growth within them from when we started, even within 5 hours a session, is incredible, because it's still giving them the freedom and it's not overloading them with all these robotic patterns and how they're going to play the game. And it allows to create that creativity and based in the environment. So 100%, it's the way forward. 100%. Always sold on it.
The director of a club spoke to me yesterday and was like, quite a big European club. And they're like, oh, we're considering going all in with transforming next year and basically doing this with every team. But some of the coaches are saying, oh, what if we start losing games? And I just said to him, well, the CLA is accelerated learning. You're learning 10 times more, if not 50 times more in a practice than the dominant approach. You really are. It's a no-brainer, man. So I was counting up yesterday, Will, and we've spent something ridiculous like 150 hours together as a coaching staff doing coach development this year in 7 months. So it's been crazy. I'd love to ask you what you've enjoyed the most within our development sessions and our scheduled workshops, and then what you've enjoyed the least that we could improve. Say we're theoretically coming back next year, how we could improve like our coach delivery education internally.
Sure. So I think the thing that I've enjoyed the most, and it was probably the thing that I thought I wouldn't enjoy the most, it's actually the amount we've worked together, all of us as a unit, and having our terminology all together, all of our principles of offense and defense all together, and that's really allowed us to see the growth within each of the players and each of the teams. And because we're all on the same page of where we're trying to get to, and throughout all our contact time of being in workshops and learning from each other, because we're all at different levels from our academy staff,
Yeah,
it's been a real asset for each of us to learn and grow. So I think that's been the thing that I've really enjoyed the most throughout workshops, definitely. I think the thing least enjoyed is I think partly is the contact time that we've had going throughout. Now, if I'm honest,
yeah.
it's in the sense of we've not been able to. It's a shame that on the senior sides we've not necessarily
Had the
collabed more
integration.
with them,
Yeah,
and
100%.
I think if there was that as well, it would be even bigger and
Yeah,
better. And I think even the senior players would enjoy more
for
the
sure.
style of how they were playing and enjoying the game.
Yeah. And, sadly, on the men's side, I didn't get the chance to have a conversation with anyone on the men's staff. And I think, if we'd have been able to integrate there, and I get, doing CLA, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but at least, look, these are the principles of play we're developing. And, we got people all over the world who are coming here to see what we had 20 coaches from abroad, including as far as New Zealand, come to spend time with the academy this year, which was
Yeah.
amazing. So it's just a shame we didn't crack that one. But it's on me as much as it's not just the senior team, the men's team, it's on me too. So, I should have figured that out. Um, so I wanna, as we wrap up, Will, it's been a really cool experience working with you over these last 8 months. And I think I'm really excited to see where you end up next in your coaching journey. At the time of recording this, I don't know where that is. I'm speaking to multiple clubs who have an interest in you right now. But what's next for you, Will? Like, where do you want to go with your learning and, the time we've spent working together, your experience here at London? How are you going to use that as a momentum to continue down this path and just spreading the message?
Sure. So in my short term, I'm going to be heading back to Snow Valley basketball with Don Showalter
Love it.
from the US in Iowa. I've been privileged to go there for the last 6 years, 7 years, and I've been in a situation where I'm now a lead clinician coach, and I get to lead clinics,
Awesome. And you're going to be showing the
and
CLA to all these coaches there,
100%,
which is, I'm
and
so
and
excited
that's
about
and
that.
that's and the amount of contact and staying time on task, because I've been in situations where I've been in part of some of them clinics and coaches will speak longer than half of the session and put the kids to sleep in a very intense high level camp. So it's in the short term, I'm excited to show off the CLA
Love
and
it.
help develop if anyone's interested, obviously, with that and how we
Yeah.
can really maximize the time on task, definitely in them camps and clinics. In the long term, I'm really trying to push professionally. I'd like to go to a route where I can continue to develop myself. As I said, I'm always willing to be a sponge, and I think you learn in different environments and different situations.
Yeah.
And I'm always hopeful that the next big opportunity will come. And my stepping stones have always led to the next best thing, and I've been very fortunate. And I think that's just a credit to how I've networked. So I'm really hoping that either a club or an organization, there's an opportunity in the future where I can help build or be a part of that.
There will
So, yeah.
be opportunities aplenty, Will. And the exciting thing is the basketball world is changing, and organizations now are actually coming to us at Transforming saying, who can I hire to do this? And I've never had that before, really, ever. It's just been like
Yeah,
isolated individuals and coaches who are hiring an assistant. But
sure,
so it's the basketball world is literally transforming, and I think it's just the pinnacle of it. And there's going to be wide
definitely,
scale changes over the next decade. So excited to see where
definitely.
you end up, buddy. And yeah,
Appreciate
it's
it.
been a pleasure to work with you, Will, and excited to follow your
And you,
journey. So
Alex.
thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, buddy. Much appreciated. Take care.